Welcome to another episode of the Flats Nation podcast. And a big shout out to Brother Dave Fader down Amarada for the awesome music. You can check out more of Dave's phenomenal work on davidfader.com. Well, today we have a longtime friend of mine, Chris Peterson of Hells Bay Boatworks. And since 2007, both himself and his bride Wendi have been at the helm of Hells Bay, producing one of, if not the world's finest skiffs and bay boats. Conservation is also a main theme at Hells Bay. Definitely a topic that we will do a follow-up show on. But thanks for joining us today, brother. I appreciate it, and discussing your fine product with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a glorious day here at Hells Bay.
Awesome. So can you give me some history of your time and position at Hells Bay?
Sure. Technically, I guess you call me owner. My wife, Wendi, and I do run it on a day-to-day basis. She often tells people we're a mom and pop business, and she says he's pop and I'm the mom. And, it is a love of ours. And we're here every day working at, and creating some of the world's finest boats. So, if you talk to my friend C.A. Richardson, he said, I'm not the CEO, I'm the CFO, which is the chief fun officer or the chief fishing officer. So I like that mantra, so that works as well.
Is it on your business card?
No, actually my business card, we don't have any titles here at Hells Bay. It just says Chris Peterson and, phone number and an email. And that's true of everybody here. So we try not to focus too much on titles, because, in small companies, that would be confusing to most people, because, we all wear so many hats. It's hard to say what your title is.
It's true. Very true. When did Hells Bay get its start, and a brief history for those who may not know how it got started and when it got started?
Sure. When it got started is a little nebulous, because it didn't really start as a company. It started as an idea. A couple fishing guides thought they had a better idea of how to make a better boat for fishing down in, the Flamingo area mostly. And they came up and found an old, not old, but just a boat builder up that was working over at Lures in St. Augustine. And they just wanted to make two boats for themselves that they thought would be a better boat. And, working with Chris Moorjohn back in the day, they just crafted up, literally under a blue tarp next to the Lures factory in St. Augustine, kind of a weekend project. And that was about 1997, 98-ish. So as I said, it's really kind of a gray area is exactly when it kind of launched, because it wasn't launched as a boat company. They went down and took their boats down, and everybody loved them. And, they're two little project boats. And, the next thing you know, you make a better mousetrap, and the world beat a path to the doorway. So, it was really about 1998, late 98 when they actually started selling boats to their friends, making and selling boats to their friends. And from there, things just kept progressing. So that's how it came to life. Was really just a better idea that just kind of spawned and then became a company.
Now, what on that different idea, that different concept, what made it different than the other skiffs that were in the marketplace at that time?
Really kind of two things. They really liked fishing out of like old Challengers, which was an old but heavy flats boat, but they also like fishing in very light, metal boats, particularly like a Sears Game Fisher, for instance. And, but those metal boats getting back into the Everglades, they worked fairly well, but they were also, very noisy. Plus they weren't, really flats boats. A lot of those early boats, they were, the Challenger was originally kind of a ski boat runabout that they kind of morphed and customized themselves to become a flats boat. So, nothing was, but Hughes Bonefisher and others were out there that were true flats boats, but, they were all kind of, came out of something else and were retrofitted for being a flats boat. So what they did is they also had been looking at that time, the America's Cup and some of the materials, the very lightweight composite materials, America's Cup was using. So they took some of those ideas from how to build boats from the America's Cup and then took some of the design ideas about making a boat that was quiet, because those metal boats were not quiet. But they didn't have hull slap. The way they were built, the way they had no real hard chines coming into the water. So if you take a couple different ideas, and I think that, we as humans, if you stuck me on an island by myself today, I couldn't create you a personal computer, or we all have to build on something from somebody else at times. So, they pulled a couple ideas together and then built on that and created kind of what, the look, the feel that we have today, although our materials continue to advance as composite technology advances, we keep moving with that.
Well, and I'm sure as we keep building lighter and lighter hulls, less and less draft goes along with that.
That is, sometimes it's stronger and not, because, we get customers, some people don't want them. I mean, they're light, they're easy to pull, they're quiet. But if sometimes when you get a boat that's too light, it tends to blow around on top of the water like we call them around here, a dry leaf. And some people want them built that way, and we can build them that way, super, super, super light. But that's not always, for polling purposes and your type of fishing, is not always the best. But we can certainly get them stronger and stronger, stiffer and lighter, and more durable, more impact resistant. That's another thing. A lot of times you might hit something in the flats.
Yeah, right. True. Very true.
You don't want to, and it's not good for the environment. But, when it does happen way back in the Everglades, you'd be very happy to have our carbon and Negra hull underneath you that kind of bounces off those things instead of going through it and cracking.
Exactly.
So,
well, before we get started touching on each model itself, can you give me a brief on your excellent product line and what is your number one selling model?
We don't really have a number one selling model. We've introduced two models in the last several years, very different boats, but one's the Eldora, one's the Marathon. But prior to prior to that, it was our bay boat. So, as those have expanded the product line, really nothing any time is one or the other. But prior to that, about 70% of our sales were either a Marquesa or a Professional. And that 70% was mixed up about 35-35. It was about equal amounts of Professionals and Marquesas were being sold. And then we've got Glade Skiffs and Biscaynes and Whiprays and lots of other boats that filled in that other, 30%. But those were really the two best sellers. As of today, we're selling, a lot of boats, but, we've brought some different nuances with the Eldora and the Marathon, and then of course the bay boat. So it's a big mix right now.
I bet. What is Hells Bay annual production run?
We do 100 and 125 boats a year.
And that's across the entire lineup, Skiffs
Yep.
and bay boat?
Yep.
Rough idea, how long does it take for any one model? And I'm sure the size adds complexity to that for sure, to go from design and engineering to its first production. What does that timeline run for you guys?
What do you mean, for a model?
For a model. Now, let's say the new Marathon.
It can vary all over the place, depending on, like you said, the complexity, but sometimes what we're trying to accomplish. And then it depends on because a lot of our molds and all of that we do in-house. So it somewhat depends on how much production time we have and people we have to take off the production lines to be able to get that done. But I'll give you an example. We went a route with the Estero, which is our bay boat, and we went out to a third party marine architect, and we gave them all of our wishes and wants, and we produced, we called a running plug from that, basically a test boat. They milled it off a CNC. The engineers came over here and we slapped a engine on it and kind of got it running, and they were all grins, and they said, "Oh, what do you think?" I said, it's okay. And it was, and a lot of companies would have gone, "This is great. It's okay." And that's what they do. They do okay, not, we try to go over the top and try to hit for perfection. I said, it's okay. And I knew in my mind, I knew kind of what I wanted it to do different, some things it wasn't doing when it was running quite the way I'd wanted it to happen. So at the time, we had almost a world-renowned mold maker here, and he's now since passed away. A guy named Tom Knight, and he used to work for people like Popeye's racing team and all. And he was here just happily working on our molds and some of our designs, but he did it hands-on. I mean, so we took that running plug and we started changing. We took it, told the engineers and our naval architects, thank you, and said, let me work on it. And we spent 6 months, and every single day, every other day we ran the boat, and every other day in between then, Tom Knight carved and worked and shaped and reworked that bottom until that boat performed the way we wanted it to perform. So it was hand done. Now, a lot of times I would take it out and I'd say, okay, well, that was great. And we might have, I was just, take a running strake and may have shortened it up 6 inches. And Tom said, I think that'd be good. And I'd say, okay, let's run it. And it'd be great. It'd be a lot better. And I'd say, okay, that was good. Okay, so let's take off another 3 inches. And he'd kind of look at me and he'd take the 3 inches off. And the next day we'd run it and I'd come back and say, okay, Tom, put the 3 inches back on right? That you took off. But we did that. And you can't, the one thing about when we're trying to, what I'm going to call fine tune a hull like that, and we're working on it, is you can't do like 3 things at one time. Cause when something, you don't know if you made it worse and something made it better. And it kind of did something in between. Right. So we do a little bit here, run it. It either be, we either assessed it. Was that a good thing? Not a good thing, until we get it right. And we do that with all of our hulls. But that's just an example. Like I said, we had something that the engineers thought was ready to go and cast a mold over and go to production. And we spent another 6 months every single day just fine tuning the hull.
Tweaking it. Yeah. And I agree with you. You can't make two different changes to the hull. You'll never know what's impacting which. So it takes time.
And, a lot of people ask me, what our experience sometimes is on trying to, where do our design ideas come from? And, what I say about boats and hull design is, it's about a quarter engineering and marine architecture. And then, there's just another quarter of that's just the artistry of pulling that together. And then another quarter is just pure luck. And then the last quarter in trying to get it all together is just pure black magic, because sometimes when everybody thinks if you do this, it's going to do that, it'll do the opposite when you get it on the water. I mean, yeah, there's all these models that people can run and all, but until you get out there and you weight the boat and you run the boat, different conditions, different things, real world scenarios, you really don't know. And but you just keep trying and just stay at it until you get it right. And then you'll come to market with it.
Well, computational fluid dynamics can only take so many factors into play versus you standing on it and running it through different types of chop. I mean, after a while, it's feel. How does it feel?
It is. And that's what I said when the engineers, they were like, well, what's, I said, it doesn't feel right. And I know they thought I was some kind of a nut. Like, what do you mean? I said, and I knew what I wanted to feel. It wasn't running high enough in the water. It wasn't running nose up enough. It wasn't, but I was some things like, okay, this is good, but we got to put the GoPros, we got to run next to the boat with it weighted different ways. And then we've got to figure out how we're going to get it to lift a little more and turn a little better and do some other things that I knew we could do with, people like Tom Knight here, who also came out of the surfboard industry, and he came out of, he did a lot of other stuff with racing boats and stuff, but he knew a lot about boats, but he's from surfboards, and he did a lot of the modeling work for, Eckler's for, the Corvette parts and things. So, he wasn't formally trained, and he's just one of our guys. We've got a lot of these guys that have a lot of that experience, but it's really kind of real world experience as opposed to just coming out of a book or a computer.
Well, how many naval architects and mechanical and electrical engineers do you have on staff, or are you outsourcing? None. Okay, so you're outsourcing that type of need when you have it?
Well, some of that. I mean, I realize too, it's an 18-foot boat. It's not a 200-foot luxury yacht that we have to worry about it. I mean, we follow ABC standards and the Coast Guard standards, and quite frankly, our own standards, the way we do things. So, and it's just, we call it the Hells Bay way. So, and we train most of our people here. So a lot of people come to work for us, are true craftsmen, but we artisans. Train them in our the way we want it done.
Yeah, I think they're artisans, Chris. It's just what they do is just phenomenal. And it appears, correct me if I'm wrong, that Hells Bay kind of patterns its production methodology and construction practices along the lines of automotive, or even more accurately, aircraft companies, the methodologies that's
Mm-hmm.
being employed. Is that a safe assessment on my part?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, and that's even more so true. And we do outsource some of that. When I say we don't have any on hand, but things like laminate, sometimes it's not so much the design, but it's the laminate structures and stuff that
Right.
and the composites and the chemical welding and things that we deal with here. We'll outsource some of that. We've got, like I said, laminate engineers that work for us outside of here. So yeah. And with that said, a lot of our laminate comes, and the way we build the boats from the glass standpoint, the structural standpoint, is done to, aircraft standard, and with materials that typically were used in the aerospace industry and haven't necessarily been used in boat building before.
What changes have you made since COVID came for a visit? And I know some of that's going to be ordering practices, but what have you had to make changes as far as purchasing and production since that showed up?
Oh, that was a challenge. That was something I think a lot of the world and the country had no idea, and I didn't either. When I first heard COVID was coming, it was right after the Miami Boat Show and whatever that was, 2020, and February, March, and it was just getting ready to kind of hit us. And I had no idea. I thought, okay, this is going to be something that's going to be like a 2 or 3 month little hiccup, and things might be hard, and we'll work through this and we'll figure this out. I had no idea that, even as of today, we're now here, talking just prior to Christmas 2023. A lot of that supply chain stuff has really worked its way through the system, but it's like I would say the supply chain is very, very buggy still. Things that prior to COVID we didn't have to pay attention to as much. You ordered it and within a couple of days, or you knew what the order time was. You ordered this, it would be here in less than 30 days. Now you get, a notice when you order on a normal time frame. You don't know what it's going to be, but suddenly you get a notice that says, "Oh, we're not going to have that in stock now for 3 more months," and it's just and it's one item. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But one item can really mess up your production, and that's true of even our suppliers. You might get that notice from somebody who's got a notice for one of their parts, and they can't ship any of their trolling motor or engine or whatever it is. They're waiting on some component from somewhere, and it's never something you foresee. Where back during COVID itself, I heard from everybody, it was a nightmare. Engines were just not to be. I don't know what happened. It was like, like they all disappeared. I was like, how could this be? And it was the engines, and so we just knew then during that period of COVID, we just did everything we could to try to keep building, keep getting stuff out the door. When we knew we weren't getting engines, or, we were borrowing and stealing from different people, stuff in the supply chain. There's sometimes little things hidden in the supply chain. Somebody's got a bunch of them sitting somewhere they're not using. They're sitting on them. But now you're paying, retail plus for it. But
right.
to keep building, sometimes just what we had to do. We just had to go out and pay literally retail plus for engines, and we'd find them places. And it took me and what used to take, we have a guy who does all our ordering and all here, automatically, and all stuff's done on a computer with an ERP system and that sort of thing. But, it would take, it wasn't that hard for him to do. Well, then it took 3 of us on the phone working, including me, calling heads of companies, places at Mercury or at Yamaha or, at Minn Kota, and begging. I said, I know you're going to ship 100 of these to somebody. All I need is one.
Right. I just need one.
Can you short that guy you're sending 100 to today? So yeah, it became probably for me a quarter of my job during 2021, just helping procure parts to keep stuff moving. So,
well, I'm sure that theory of just-in-time ordering has been thrown out the window. You've got to anticipate quite a bit in advance still, if I'm not mistaken.
We do. And one of the bigger things that we've changed is probably just the sheer amount of inventory we carry. We've probably doubled the inventory that we have on hand because, like you said, that just-in-time is just not working.
What is the biggest thing that you're still fighting with, Chris? Is it engines or is it cleats? What do you
No, it doesn't matter today.
Really?
No, it could be a cleat. something simple as a cleat. Engines have gotten a lot better. But all of a sudden you'll need somebody's 90, and that you can get all the 115s and all the 70s you want, but the 90 for whatever reason's got some cog in it that somebody didn't send to that engine manufacturer, and they're not going you don't know what it's going to be, but it could be a cleat, it could be a microchip in a GPS unit, and all of a sudden you got everybody wants this one or two units, and one of those two units is not going to ship anytime soon. So we're scrambling to try to find, again, what's in the supply chain that other people have now, that, retail chains and stuff, to try to get stuff to make sure we can keep going when that happens, and there's no way to anticipate it really today, because, except carry a little more inventory of things, and hope that you can ride through that speed bump. Yeah. When it happens, okay, you hope you can, you have enough on hand that you'll be down to close to nothing by the time you get your next order here. So.
Does Hells Bay have its own metal shop, or is that something that you're using a local, to build polling platforms?
There's only like three things that we don't do here. We don't do our own metal work, like polling towers. We don't have a welder on staff. We don't do our own cushions, so we don't have a sewing person on staff. And then we don't make our own trailers. They come to our specifications, made to the bottom, the exact bottom for each model of our boat, from Ramlin Custom Trailers in Orlando. But those are three things we kind of really don't do here.
Talk to me about Hells Bay's quality control. Can the QC manager pull one and send it back to a specific station and say, hey, I need this cleaned up, I need this
all the time?
How does that process work?
Well, it shouldn't happen that way, but if it does happen, something down, you see something coming down and it needs to go back over to finishing to get something buffed out, or somebody's belt buckle hit something that shouldn't have and put a nick on something, it goes right back and to wherever it needs to happen. It needs to be perfect when it leaves here. There's no room for that. In each area, before they accept we've got certain kind of departments, and when it's done in one department, if it gets ready to move to the next, we've got a QC guy that'll look at it, but then the next department shouldn't accept it unless it's right, and they know and the next department knows what the prior department should have to be done right. So, they see something like, you need to polish this out a little bit more. They'll flag it and send it back. They won't accept it in the next department. So
that's great. To me, the hull's specific purpose,
mm-hmm.
or one of its most important purposes, is to keep a wiring harness dry, because that's the number one failure item, it seems to be, on any boat, is electrical. And I'm sure that yours are being made to MMA specs. Are you producing your own wiring harnesses?
Oh yeah, we have to. Each one of our boats is custom ordered and custom done. So, somebody wants lights somewhere differently. You don't have to have it where they normally go. I mean, as long as within Coast Guard standard, deck lights or whatever, or GPSs and all that electrical stuff. We pull our own harnesses, and we build the harness for your boat and for the options and accessories that you spec at the time you order your boat. See, we're a custom manufacturer. We don't have dealers. So, you come here, you tell us how you want your dream boat built, and we go from there.
So basically they're handmade for each boat then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Handmade, hand pulled. We use only the finest, wiring in the boat. We use, everything's heat shrunk. Everything is very, organized and detailed, very easy to follow for when you get your boat and you want to change something up. It's easy to figure out where all the wires go. They're all color coded and things like that.
When is the harness physically installed, Chris? Is it being put into the hull and pulled before the cap is put down, or is it installed into the bottom of the cap? How is that?
No, it's a flats boat, so it's not a cabin cruiser, so it's not as hard. But some of it goes in. We have what we call a pre-rig, pre-harness that goes in before they cap the boat. But then most of it goes in, and what we call in the rigging station. The consoles are rigged separately with waterproof Deutsch connectors that then connect into the main harness. So the consoles are rigged outside of the boat, and then they're put inside the boat at the time that everything else is being rigged.
What are you using for conduit material? Is PVC pipe? How are you running? What are you running the harnesses through?
It depends on where it is. Some of it's PVC. A lot of it is in wire loom, and we've got zip tie blocks and things that keep it all very organized and uptight up inside. Is how a lot of that's run. So some boat manufacturers don't even put it in anything. They just run it and zip tie it up to the bottom of the gunnel. But we don't. Everything's
I
loomed or.
fix my share of those. Trust me. Yeah, I know. What about those harness components, Chris? Is COVID still fighting you on getting, Deutsch connectors and bulk wiring and things of that
No,
nature, or is that improved?
no, that's pretty much behind us. At one point, it was challenging. That wasn't our biggest challenge, but right now we're good on. And I say that, and tomorrow we'll all of a sudden we'll go and order some wire. That's the problem. We'll go and order wire, and all of a sudden, I should have knocked on wood with Dave on that
Exactly.
on that podcast, So no, that's not really been a problem, and there's really nothing right now is a huge problem. We do a weekly production meeting with all my heads of my departments and ordering and sales and everybody. We come together. We just had that meeting. We just got out of it today, and it was amazingly quick and easy, and relatively really nothing was a problem this week. So that's a good thing. So
That's a good thing. So as far as, your hard components like your cleats and power poles and things of that nature, you're not running into much of a supply chain issue with those, or you still
no,
having
we
to
did
order
have
months out?
a little bit of a problem there with I think the 50 something inch new power pole move. And with them, that what I understand was they had a chip that wasn't coming in time, that they had to get from somewhere for them to manufacture their product. And, our purchase orders all got pushed back six weeks from what our anticipated dates were, but now they're caught up. All of a sudden I got like two whole pallets of them showed up here once, all in one day. Once they got caught up, and hopefully that won't be a problem. Like I said, but you never know. Tomorrow, so you open up your computer and somebody says, "Oh, the PO number, whatever, will not be fulfilled for another, we're on back order for another, 8 weeks or something," and you go, oh, you start trying to figure it out again. But no, everybody seems to be going pretty good right now. I wouldn't say there's anything on COVID or any building the boats, or everything's rocking and rolling.
Being a custom boat, upholstery, you probably got a lead in time on that. How long does it take for you to get a set of cushions and stuff?
Well, right now we're our own production. We're back ordered, or we're out 18 to 20 months right now. So that's not really a problem. Our upholstery people have a list of every boat and what everybody wants on it from the next 18 months and our anticipated date that we need the upholstery by. So they're keeping up.
Let's get to some skiff specific questions, if you don't mind. The first Hells Bay skiff, the Whip Ray, if I'm not mistaken, probably went into production about late 97, 98?
Mm-hmm.
But probably before a lot of others were targeted for the flats fishing segment, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Well, you had your Mavericks and Hugheses out there.
What was the major differences between the Whip Ray and those other vessels that were already being produced?
Well, a couple of things, and to some extent, people have gotten away from what I would call our beginnings to some extent, and that is that the Whip Ray was a very simple boat. Could be easy. It was light enough to be run with the mainstay of that back then was that Mercury 25 horsepower. Back at that time period, I had a Maverick Master Angler with a 150 on it. But God forbid if you came off plane in anything shallow, you'd have to have Cito drag you off of it because you couldn't have pushed it off if you had to. So very lightweight, very simple boats. But one of the main reasons is that, there's no anything hard or noisy on a Hells Bay to make any noise as the boat's moving through the water. So, it moves very, very quietly. And that's one of the main things. And that's one of the main things all Hells Bays do. And one of the things in our own hull designs that we focus on the most. It needs to be a fishing tool first. It needs to be a very good fishing tool. It doesn't need to be the fastest boat. It doesn't need to be, and we've worked on that. Some of our models are now faster and whatever. But the core is when you're fishing, it needs to be quiet. It needs to be stealth. It needs to be the greatest fishing platform at that point. That's what they're built for.
It's fishing.
Hmm?
That's the prime directive. It's fishing boat.
Yeah, it is. And off plane poling quietly or trolling quietly, is what we're known for and what we're really good at. People sometimes ask me, what's the deal? I said, well, there's no hard shines. There's no funky, you're not hearing the ripple as it moves through the water because there's nothing for it to ripple on. And I tell people, and I don't think that fish don't think, they got lateral lines. I mean, they know when things are moving in the dark. I mean, it's not like you can see them or things don't hear them. They know when a bull shark's moving through the flat. They know. But I think what our boats do is they move in the sounds and the feel on the lateral lines of fish. It's my belief that the way they're designed, they think there's something natural. They think they're a manatee or something else that should be there is moving through the flat, not some guy on a boat with a hook, trying to catch up. So,
right.
So that's why the fish can stay calm and you can naturally present your lures and the fish just don't know you're there. And I kind of say this, I don't have him anymore, but I used to have this big 80-pound chocolate lab that would sleep on the floor next to me. Well, he groaned and he flomped and his collar rattled against the floor and I sleep like a baby. Somebody in my living room that shouldn't be there drops their keys, I'll come out of bed like a ninja. And so it's kind of the same thing. If it's a natural feel and a natural pulse along their lateral lines, that's like something that should be there, which is what I think we present at, they're not worried about it. But once you get something trying to slip up on them, it's got that little crinkly hull slap as they're coming along. That's that unnatural sound, like somebody dropping their keys in my living room at 3:00 in the morning. So that's kind of the difference, I think, in what you see. And the Whipray was really the first boat that did that, was really focused on coming and being quiet while you were there. Light, quiet, easy.
How has the Whipray itself improved over the years? I mean, have you just...
Oh, boy. I've got... if we had pictures on your podcast, we've got the first Hells Bay, I found over the Bahamas, actually here in the showroom. It's very rudimentary, really rough. And then, the current boats, including the Whipray, the laminate schedules are all completely different. They're all highly refined. To the Whipray today and the hull design is not much difference. And when I talked about earlier, we have the Eldora. It's very much like if the Whipray today's got place a floor and it's got a place for a center console and it's got a bait well center line. The Eldora, if you were to look at the first Whipray in our showroom and then look at the Eldora, it's a modern version of that with the modern materials. And I say the Eldora has everything you need to go fish and nothing you don't. And it's a very simple boat, and that's what the original Whipray was. And when we didn't know what to call it at first, we first started calling the Eldora when we was doing the Eldora project. We used to call it the Back to the Future boat. And we called it that because we were looking a lot back to our roots when we built that boat. Very, a lightweight, simple, just uncomplicated boat. But at the same time, it's made with all the carbon and negra and our own proprietary resin systems and things that make that boat just solid, last decades. So, the Whipray today, it's you might say it's more refined. Whereas the Eldora, it's still got all the fit and finish of a Hells Bay today, but it doesn't have any of the bells and whistles or bait wells or, all the things that sometimes can complicate your fishing experience.
Make it heavier, that's for sure. Was wood ever used in any Hells Bay skiffs over the years?
Never. That was one of the things too. We had never had any wood on our boats. They were always a structural foam core composite.
How is the Hells Bay vacuum infusion type system different or employed versus other skiff builders? What's Hells Bay special sauce there?
Well, people ask me that sometimes, and I say, I guess the easiest way to answer that question is, I'll be at a boat show and we'll be next to some very production brand where they're using the cheapest of everything they can and just including trying to figure out how to build them so that they use the least amount of labor to get their lowest price point out there.
Sure.
And it's an 18-foot boat, and they've got a big sign at the boat show, whatever it is, the price. And here we are 4, 5, 6 times more expensive. And people who don't know what we are and what the difference really is will ask me, now that boat, it'll go in the water and whatever, and the lesser boat. And I'll say, yeah, I can. And, well, what's the big difference? And I would say there's not necessarily this huge aha moment, but it's more of 1,000 little things of details that make a big difference. And it's not like, oh, we can have this type of engine and they can't, or that we have this feature that boat doesn't. It's a flat skiff. It's supposed to be a simple boat, but it's built tough, and every little thing on that boat we pay attention to. Right, to how we synchronize the screws and things like that. A lot of people don't even look at. And some of our customers, they know it, but some may not until they have their boat a while, and they'll come and go, "Wow, there's a lot of things I didn't realize that you guys do." That now that I've had it in my garage, and I've noticed these things, and so the big thing is 1,000 little things.
What are the advantages versus a typical hand layup hull by employing that type of system? And I have to think off the top of my head, a lot more consistent. One weighs within a pound or less of another one would be my first thought.
Well, a hand layup hull is, well, for one thing, a lot of hand layup. It depends. In boat building, a lot of people use something called a chopper gun, which is just a gun that just spews fibers and resin all at one time. And it's like a big cotton candy machine, and it makes a hell of a mess, but you can lay down fiberglass pretty quick. It's just not strong, or as strong. And I could make it as strong, but it's gonna weigh 4 times as much because just the way the materials lay together. To have a really strong boat and have it also be very light, it takes a lot of engineering and a lot of care. And then when we infuse all of our fabrics and materials, each layer is there for a reason, and it may make it stiffer, it may make it stronger, it may make it have better fatigue properties. It's like a big Dagwood sandwich, really, in that composite. And then there's a whole lot of engineering and on the space and the foam core and where all that's placed. And then we put it under a big bag and we vacuum bag it. Now, what you're doing technically is you're actually removing air, but you're replacing it with resin. A lot of people think it's like you're injecting it, but it's the opposite of that. You're sucking it in, but you're really moving air. In that process, what you've done is when you have that air, those air voids and all in there will cause weakness, and you don't really know where they are when you're hand laying. But when you vacuum infuse, when done right, it removes any and all possibilities of any air. So you really get the strongest product for the design. And also when you're hand laying, some days the guy with the resin gun, he hangs on that trigger longer, puts more resin with the fabrics, or not enough. Got a guy who's a little shy on the trigger. Those inconsistencies, that laminate is designed for an exact, what they call, resin to fabric ratio. A little too much resin, too little resin still might fall within your strength specifications, but one will be stronger, one will be less stronger. And when you talk about consistency, when we know exactly how much resin is supposed to be in that hull or that part, that's what goes in there. And it then levels out with the vacuum so that it's in the fabrics at the exact right ratio. So you get, for the weight, you get the exact strongest part you can have.
Does it have any bearing, Chris, on flash off times when it comes to vacuum infusion? Does it make it shorter? Do you need to still let it sit and flash off for the same amount of time? Any bearing on that?
No, it doesn't really bear on that. No, a lot of boat manufacturers have something they call a summer resin and winter resin, depending on the temperatures in their factory. And you also, depending on which resin you're using at the time, as temperatures change, today might be warmer than it was yesterday. Cold front comes through. Sure. You change up, you use your temperatures to change up your catalyst ratios and flash times. With that said, we're one of the few, probably the only boat manufacturer I know that our lamination department is air conditioned and conditioned. So it's always the same temperature. So we don't have temperature variation, and we do not have a winter blend and a summer type blend for that. So we're consistent all the time because our lamination shop's always the same temperature and same humidity.
For those outside the industry, and I know this is a newer term that's being used, what is carbon and negra?
Well, it's carbon. Well, that's something we came up. Well, we didn't come up with it. Part of what are we talking about aerospace? The first carbon and negra stuff was being used by Boeing in the Dreamliner. So a negra is a fabric that is got a lower molecular weight than Kevlar. Kevlar is, well, if you expose the fibers, if you get a gash in your boat or something and you've exposed your Kevlar, water can wick up into that fabric and it can suck into the fabric and into your laminate. If you were to damage your boat, negra is hydrophobic, so it expels water, so it won't soak up any water. So that's a good thing. It's also a stronger material. So for all the properties, and really what you're looking for with the Kevlar is really an impact resistance. So, and tear resistance and all of that. And negra is even better at that, and it's lighter than that. So and we were the first to use it in the marine industry. Like I said, we pulled it out of aerospace. The carbon fiber per weight and amount of resin, it's almost like a crystal. If you don't have any negra with it, it's almost like a crystal ball, because it will break and crack and fracture, but it's stiff. So you can get a stiffness in that product with just carbon fiber, and go across spans with lighter weights, and still get a stiffness, but you're not getting the impact. So we're using carbon and negra, and there's still fiber. There's actually glass fibers in some of our in our layups and things, because they all have a reason for being there. So we're using a carbon and negra, and then we've got a proprietary resin system that we use along with it. So that is actually, it's not, molecular weight's not any less, but it's actually got I'm going to maybe get too technical for some of your listeners, but it's got a higher modulus and more, I'm looking for the word now. I know it's a technical term, but basically stretchability. Anyway, okay. So it's a stiffer resin, but when you do impact it or push it, once it does start to move, it'll move further and come back than a normal resin. So, super, super cool stuff. And, so that's, so it's the resins that you use along with fabric materials that make, in the composite industry, we can make, the same size, but extremely much lighter than steel. So if with composites, you can make stronger materials than steel, considerably less weight. So it's all about weight with us. So anyway, we can make a stiffer and a product that will move with you if you hit something. And then if you go even further and you actually impact, you've got the negra in there, and then you got the additional stiffness with the carbon in there. And then, like I said, there's other stuff in there too, as far as, various glasses, different types of weaves and different thicknesses that come up with that engineered product to get that super light, super tough structure you're looking for.
How many components are constructed with carbon and negra? I mean, can you make the entire skiff out of it, or are you limited to hull and cap? What is the design intent on that?
Carbon and negra is really just our outside skin. And then a lot of times if we want to use, we may use just carbon on the other side. So, and the caps can be, if you use full carbon, The caps don't need, they're not going to hit something at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. So with your cap, it needs to resist you and your pliers. So which carbon alone will do just fine, but it's that hull that really needs that impact resistance. And that's where that carbon and agar comes in.
Did you have to make any adjustments on the vacuum system for the carbon and agar due to its construction and structural rigidity, or same time?
No, well, no. We use the same type of vacuum pumps and same methods that we would use otherwise. When you're using resins, there's a term called centipoise. Centipoise is the flowability of the resin, and the centipoise with that and vinyl ester or polyester resins are all about the same. So we didn't have to do anything different to use our resin system than we did with like a vinyl ester.
Are you using the carbon and agar in the stringers, or is that just
No. Stringers are mostly carbon and glass.
What is your typical, let's say, Marquesa hull weigh stock, and how closely can you control those weights across a model year's production run?
Well, so that becomes a big question is what the finished product is, and that really comes down to what kind of angler we've got that's ordered the boat. Does the guy want, a 36 volt trolling motor system and, a 16-inch screen and the biggest engine he can put on there. And you got to realize this is all on a 16 to 18 foot boat, for the most part, 24 in the bay boat. So we weigh all of our boats when they come out of what we call assembly. And for the most part, all boats are the same in our factory at that point. After that, they go to rigging, and all those things we were just talking about change dramatically.
Oh, sure.
All over the boat. So yeah, it's weight here, it's there, it's where you put it, and we're trying to balance it and those sort of things. But we're within every boat we have a production weight, and when it comes out of there, it's fully rigged, not fully rigged, it's cap on, gas tank in, everything is going to be under the deck for the most part, and all the pieces and all of the components that hold the actual hulls and everything together. And we from boat to boat, there won't be a 10-pound variance from boat to boat.
Wow.
On any of our models, really.
Amazing.
Well, if you know how if you know how my laminators and guys are, it's they're precise, and there's formulas, and so it's, if one part only takes 35 gallons worth of resin, then that's all that it gets. It's 35 gallons every time. When you vacuum, when you're vacuum bagging it and infusing it like that, 35 gallons weighs 35 gallons.
Exactly. Being a custom skiff and bay boat builder, what lines of engines do you offer? I mean, I know some that say, yeah, we offer certain ones, but it's only 3 or it's 4.
No, I don't care what engine you put on there, as long as you buy a Hells Bay. So, and I say this about engines. I have it, without getting too deep into it, almost every horsepower, I have my own personal preference, and it's not necessarily one manufacturer versus another. I've actually, if I can think of them, each of my kind of horsepower ranges, I've got probably 4 different engine companies that I really like for each. I mean, one for each of those, and they're 4 different. It's not like, lean toward one or the other.
Right.
But this is what I say. Anybody, any of those, and people say, well, which is the most reliable or whatever.
How do you take
a lot of them perform very similar across the horsepower range, and their weights are so close. And you don't think that those guys aren't ripping them apart when their competitor puts a new model out there, doesn't end up over on their engineering bench and they're weighing and figuring it out. What did they do? You bet they are. One, and then 2, you can get an extended warranty, and sometimes with different product promotions or times of the year, they'll give you a 6-year factory warranty on an engine. This is a mechanical metal thing that I'm going to put into salt water, maybe not worse. Take care of, and maybe run into things. And they're going to give me a 6-year warranty. And this is all motor companies. I say they've all are today making great, reliable engines. And it really becomes, are you are you a vanilla guy? Are you a chocolate guy? Or do you
Right.
like raspberry ice cream? It's, I can't tell you one's better than the other across the board. And we work with all of them.
Some say, I always like prefacing with that word, that a flats jack is not recommended on a Hells Bay skiff due to center of gravity concerns. What's been
No,
your experience with such? And since many of the Hells Bay skiff transoms already have elevated engine placement
mm-hmm.
on them.
No, when we do a lot of them with jack plates, some of our hulls, it really doesn't help performance. Particularly our V hulls, like in our Marquesa. I mean, I don't see the need for it. You know, we do almost every boat that goes to Texas, for instance, a completely different fishery. A lot of hard bottom. Almost all of them go with a tunnel hull and a jack plate. So, and then there's other applications where jack plates actually are, they're pretty helpful. So again, some of our boats, it just depends, and it depends on where you're going. 99% of the time where you're going to run it, why have a mechanical thing that's probably at some point, again, it's an electrical and metal thing in salt water. I try to tell people, if you don't think you're going to use it something very often, don't put it on your flats boat. It's just waiting for something you're going to have to maintain or deal with down the line.
It's that age-old saying, the less plumbing, less possibility for leaks.
Well, I like to keep them simple when I can.
What is each model draft static for the design normal loads? I mean,
a glade skiff somewhere around 3.
Yeah,
glade skiff somewhere around 3 inches. Your standard professional somewhere around 4.5 to 5 inches. A Marquesa around 8 inches. And if you don't fill up our 53-gallon bait well in the back of the Estero, about 11 inches. So for a 24-foot bay boat, it gets pretty darn shallow. But again, then when you load it up and put an extra 53 gallons and fill that live well, which you could, if you're fishing snook or something somewhere and you want to really cram whitebait into that thing, it's designed to put a lot of whitebait in it back there, but you're not probably trying to float 11 inches when you're doing that.
True.
So
very true.
Very
true. Give me the use case differences on the Marathon versus the Marquesa.
The long and short of it is they're both V hulls. The Marquesa is bigger and wider. It's more stable. Still great. It's a great polling boat. It's been that way for a long time. But the Marathon is a smaller boat, so when you're running, it's definitely got a lower coefficient of friction and less wetted surface when you're running with the same engine sizes. So you can really get some good speed out of it. It's got a great V hull, just like the Marquesa. Both extremely dry, but Marathon can run like a scalded cat. It's also thinner, so it's more like, the thinner and longer something is, actually the easier it is to track and pole.
Sure.
So its length to width ratio is thinner than the Marquesa. So, it's a smaller boat in the water. So, it's easier to pole, but it's also more nimble. It doesn't carry as many people. It does, it carry a trolling motor and things like that on it, but Marquesa, if you want to load something up and put, 36-volt trolling motor system in something and you really want to troll a lot during the day, you might be better off in a Marquesa. It's not, and if you don't want to run at 60, 65 miles an hour across, heavy water in the flats that the Marathon can do, that's a jarring day, on a small lightweight boat and going that fast. But, a lot of tarpon guys like that, and the tournament guys like that. So, it's kind of a Goldilocks thing. Some of them are whatever type of person and fishing you do there. We got one that's fast and nimble, and we got one that's a little slower, but it's a lot easier on you and your bones, and can carry more people, maybe some grandkids and some other things like that. So, it really depends on how you fish, where you fish, what's important to you. The Marathon also, you can put a set. We just did a demo with a 70 on, and it runs 40 miles an hour. But now you've got a really lightweight engine on there. So you can float, you're floating in 6.5 inches of water, running 40 miles an hour. So, and you can go up to 115 on that boat and it'll do, 60, almost 60 something miles an hour. So
That's a lot of engine for the marathon.
Yeah. Well,
got a
again,
lot.
I'm a simple boat guy. I mean, my personal boat, I don't have a personal boat, but my personal favorite really is the kind of, to me, the jack of all trades is a professional. And it's actually the same length and width almost as the marathon. So the deck size is almost the same. But it's a flat bottom boat and I don't need, and I've decided at my age, I'm now 60. Anything over about 32 miles an hour, I look like one of those funky dudes riding a motorcycle down, I-75 and their face is doing all, I don't need that. I'm happy not tearing. I'm going to go ripping past a million fish before I get to my spot. I'm happy going along it and looking at the spoonbills over here. I don't have to be 10 and 2 doing 50, 60 miles an hour anywhere. I'm very happy kick back doing 30 miles an hour and getting to my fishing spot. So that's my style.
Right. That's right. It's the use case. I was just looking because the marathon and the Marquesa, I think
now, if I was 25
lot.
again, I might want to be ripping like you wouldn't believe,
Sure.
but I'm not. I've been there, done that, I've broken too many things, boats and bones,
That's for sure. For those who are not a tiller fan, which I'm not, I see the use case, but I'm just not a fan of a tiller. Can you get an Eldora with a little side console?
Yes, you can. But the Eldora is really made to be simple with that little tiller on there. I love it. I love it with a little tiller.
Tell me about the Orbis Edition features and how many models can you order those features with?
Anyone.
Okay.
It's really a color and it's got it's all carbon fiber build, and then what we do is we put clear gel coat over the front bulkhead in the cockpit so that you see the carbon fiber through there, and then it's a color scheme to look like their kind of their Helios branded more. It's not the old bat and kill Orvis. This is the new Orvis. So that's kind of the look and the feel is the Helios Orvis style and feel. And years ago we did an Orvis edition. It was a cream deck with the bat and kill green hull and had more of a traditional feel. But the new Orvis is the new Orvis of today. So
is that color scheme, Chris, locked down, or does the customer have some flexibility in saying, I want to use a different cap color? Or
yeah, sure, but it's not called it wouldn't be the Orvis edition, but I guess we could put Orvis on it if you want to. I mean, you could call it an Orvis edition, but my customers can do whatever they want. I've got a whole Easter egg basket of colors out there on the shop floor being built. You can come up with anything you want. If you want to match, if it makes your wife want to let you have that boat, if you say, well, I'll have the hull match my wife's eyes, just send me what the color match is, and we will make whatever you want in color wise. So we don't have a problem doing that. Being a custom boat manufacturer, we can custom whip up our gel coats and off we go.
Well, now that you and I are 60 plus, is there any plans at Hells Bay to build a little bit larger skiff that's a little bit more stable for us as our sea knees are getting weaker the older we get?
Sure. It's called the Estero, man. I'm telling you, I love that 24. I take my grandkids in it. And listen, this is a true story. I have a good friend of mine who's one of the rangers down in Flamingo, and he knew I was fishing down in Flamingo. And I had the Estero, and I was all the way up on Snakebite with the Estero trolling through there. I had Chico Fernandez with me, and we caught a monster snook during one of the Herman Lucerne tournaments. And as we're sitting there and we're working our way across Snakebite, if people know it's pretty shallow area, there's this plane keeps circling us, and it circled for about 20 minutes. And I thought, what's going on with that? So when I got back to dock, I called my buddy and I said, hey, you guys I'd never seen one down in Flamingo. I said, you got a spotter? He says, yeah, they spotted you. He said, I asked him. I said, they said, we've never seen a boat that big that hadn't been, that isn't grounded up on Snakebite.
Right.
And I said, and he said, well, and he said, is it this? Yes. Is it this? Yes. And he said, is the engine tilted up out of the water? And I said, yeah. And he said, is the trolling motor down? He said, Yeah. He says, I know who it is. Yep. That boat probably is up there floating. It's not a problem. And then, everybody left us alone. Anybody come running in there trying to get us trouble and messing up our fishing. But, the point is the spotter plane was kind of astounded. And quite frankly, between you and I'm not going to pull a 24-foot boat, but
No, not at all.
hey, but I'm in 11 inches of water. I'm working my way across snakebite. I know it. I know there's some other shallower parts I can't get right up on, and it's not, I wasn't just working the channel. I was working my way right across snakebite, the right tides and stuff. So, for us older guys, as we start to get older, I say go with a 24-foot bay boat. I mean, we don't have to put a T-top and all on it. It's pretty close to just a big flats boat
Right.
so, and they're awesome. I love them. I probably take out the Estero now more than, because I've got a bunch of grandkids now, 5 and 7 and 2 little ones. So, just trying to keep them, under control on a flat skiff and not lose them, and I don't pay that much. I'm not paying that much attention. I'm liable to lose one at some point somewhere. So it's easier to keep them in the boat. So,
Right. I agree wholeheartly.
yeah.
What's lead times running nowadays for a skiff? We'll
18,
exclude the bay boat from that. So
the bay boat's included in this. It's 18 to 20 months.
that long. Okay.
Mm-hmm. We got a lot of boats on order. So I'm very fortunate that way.
Speaking of the Estero, what separates it from the other bay boats that are on the market? And I know it's a lot newer than a lot of ones that are still on the market, but
Mm-hmm.
what's the key separators?
Oh, a couple. We had a lot. We sat down with a lot of guys and a lot of customers ahead of time, and we made this list of like 200 things that we would like to try to incorporate into. Everybody wanted this, wanted that. At the time there was some manufacturers out there that there wasn't a hatch that you could put a 5-gallon bucket in. Well, every one of ours, a 5-gallon bucket will fit in. Type of thing. And that was one thing on the list. And when we got done, I thought, if we can get half of these done, it's going to be an awesome boat. Well, by the time we got it done, we got like 178 of the 200 items, on our checklist of things that we wanted to see incorporated into this boat, done. So, start off, in the back, we've got we wanted a 50+ gallon live well in the back that would really, be able to handle a lot of bait. So we spent a lot of time on the design to be able to really pack a lot of bait and have it survive. That's, with the way bait puts off, its waste product and all. It's not just all about keeping oxygen in there. It's about getting waste out of there as well. So we spent a lot of time. That's just a bait well. A lot of bay boats, the cap in the cockpit are one piece. Ours is built like our skiffs, where there's a cap and a cockpit. What that does is the Estero is 8.5 feet wide, which keeps it road legal without a wide load permit. There's some companies have that, but a lot of them, they kind of have the size and the feel of our boat. They're out 9.5 feet. But what we did is, so therefore the side of your hull, it's not, you're not losing that space where they've got a cap that comes down, and it's impeding into there. So you've got almost a full, 8 feet wide in the floor of the boat. So you've got a lot of room. A lot of bay boats, particularly in the back, the sides are fairly low. We've got ours high enough so that when you're on the floor, I think it's 19.5 inches to the cap. And with that 19.5, at least for me and a lot of people, it fits you right in the kneecap pretty well. So you can also put your feet and get them underneath the gunnel so that you can kind of lock in, and your knee, your toes aren't inboard while you're trying to lean. You can get your feet up and under that, and your knees can lock in against that cap on the gunnel and feel very, very, very secure. Our walk boards around the side are the same size as the Marquesa, actually, and way wider than a lot of bay boats. You can easily walk the gunnels of that boat without feeling like you're on some sort of balancing beam.
Right.
So you can 3-4 people walk along the side of the boat and, work, as you're going down a line of mangroves and throw onto snook, it's very comfortable for doing that. Working your way forward, we've got a lot of big holds. We've got a big fish box up front that actually I can lay down inside of up under the decks. So, it's just Again, it's 1,000 little things. But then one of the big is going back to, if you just look at it and didn't have a T-top on it, and you closed your eyes and you didn't have a size perspective, it looks like a Marquesa, and it really is. So therefore, when you're going along, there is no hull slap, there is no crinkling of the water. You just silently slip along in that boat, and the fish don't seem to mind. They're very comfortable with you being in there amongst them. So. Um, that's a big difference. Again, it's the fishability of that boat.
What features did you bring across from the skiffs on that, Chris, and incorporate into the Estero? I'm assuming you've got undergunnel rod storage. There's some bay boats that don't even have that.
Yep.
What other little features did you bring over?
Oh, well, one of the things, for instance, we've got, we have the forward deck and some hatches that lift. But you can fit under the deck in locking, lockers, 9-foot fly rods. And then, yes, under the gunnels, there's plenty of room for fly rods and regular rods, up underneath, your gunnels on the sides. The big walk boards, the big ability to walk down the side of the boat. The fishability there, big front casting deck, really important. That's what we brought from the skiffs. So.
I assume that you're using the same basic construction methods to build this.
Yep.
So
Yep.
are you using carbon and egger in this?
Yes. Every one of our boats has carbon and egger in it.
What does she draft, roughly?
About 11 inches.
Well, that's plenty.
Yeah. She's 11 inches, but without squatting it with putting a ton of bait in it. I mean, if you want to throw crabs and shrimp and just use that great big bait well, but only put, 4 or 6 inches of water in there, you'll be at 11 inches. But you fill that thing up to the top and put, 50 something gallons in there all the way in the back, which is where that big bait well is. She'll squat down. You'll probably right then you're looking at probably 13 and a half inches when it's full of to the top, is what she's drafting.
Well, for those who cheat and fish on the dark side and use live bait, right?
And she's got a 15-degree dead rise in the bottom too, so she's got a V in it. Something we didn't do, we did not want a step hull in that boat. Step hulls to run right have to run at a very exact kind of angle to get that air introduced and kind of ride on air. What you can't do with those is if you're going to go off, let's say, offshore a little bit, which this boat can certainly do, you want to come run back in through a nasty inlet coming through Tampa Bay with an outgoing tide and the wind's whipping in and it's standing up. You slow this boat down to 26, 27 miles an hour. You can almost walk it in right on its rear end. I mean, it'll stand it almost vertical, but point is you can get that nose way up and walk it in a nasty inlet, which you're not going to be able to do. And so what we lose with that, we probably could have gotten a top speed, of another 2 or 3 miles an hour had we gone with a step. But this boat also, when you want to ditch and dodge up a creek, it doesn't let loose. It runs like it's on rails. It turns and twists. And like I said, you can slow it down, get that nose way up and walk it right in an inlet safely, at any time. So, that's why we don't have a step on this boat.
Well, that makes sense. What do you feel is the best engine for that? And I'm thinking, running the big ditch over to the Bahamas and not having to, I understand how much fuel you're going to burn while you're there, but does she carry enough fuel with a certain engine combination that you could run over there, fish for a day and a half during the weekend and run back and not have to take on fuel?
Sure. So, engines, the Yamaha 300, basically all of our the pricing starts with any engine you want, at a 300. And then there's an options to go higher. And we put 450 racings on them from Mercury. I really like the 400, Mercury, and the 350 Mercury. Yamaha, when you get up a little higher, that engine starts to really gain in weight where the Mercuries aren't. And we've done that, was it the 350 Suzuki with the counter rotating prop on it on there? It ran great. It was unbelievable. So we've got a whole menagerie of those engines from anything from the 450 racing down to 400s, 350, 300s. We haven't done anything less than a 300. If somebody wanted like a 250, we probably could, but I haven't tested it with that. But boat runs great with a 300, and that 300 Yamaha, 300 Mercury, 300 Suzuki. Those are all great engines, and I couldn't say one's better than the other necessarily.
How big is the fuel cell on that Estero?
And it starts at a standard 80, but we can add more if you need it.
Interesting. Now, is a flash jack, engine jack recommended for that haul, or
Yeah,
is
we do. We put a jack plate on there, no problem. Now, the interesting thing about our fuel cell is that full or empty, that gas tank sits on the CG of the boat. So you don't get it, it's not like it's too far forward, too far back. And then depending on how the boat's weighted, you get a little more squat. Let's say if it's, full versus empty. So that boat goes up and down. When you're floating on it, it's right in the center of gravity. And we did that on purpose to put it right in the center. So you don't get a big difference in draft or squatability. And a lot of manufacturers, they haven't paid attention to that. So
quality of the boat is not appreciated or even utilized if you can't get her to the ramp. Tell me about your trailer vendor, who you're using, the features and benefits that you incorporate for those particular boats.
We use a company called Ramblin' Custom Trailers, and a lot of people have kind of morphed to that at times. But we have some of our own proprietary features with Ramblin'. For instance, all of our trailers, all the I-beams and all are anodized, for instance. And then we're the only company that Ramblin' will do that for. They're all custom fitted to the hull. So when we send a hull over there and we custom fit, so it's not a one size fits all. Even our 18-foot boats don't all get the same trailer. The Marquesa trailer is built for a Marquesa, and our guide model, which is also 18 feet, just got a different hull profile, but it's got its own guide trailer and it's fit to exactly for each of those trailers. The advantage of that is, more than anything else, is you back that trailer down, since it's custom built and it's meant to fit the strakes and all just perfectly. You could have the wind blowing one way, the current going another, and you know how that looks like those Googans at the boat ramps. It's always if you get the front of that Hells Bay close enough into the back of that trailer, it kind of grabs it, and there is no guess. You put it right up exactly where it needs to go, and it doesn't disappoint you. It locks on, and it makes you look like the most seasoned pro, even if it's the first time you've been out on the water. Just the way those trailers are the way they're designed, and it's a collaboration between us and Ramblin'. And the funny and the interesting thing is when I got into this business, the guy who was Ramblin', he and I were in junior high school together. We're in the same class. And I lost track of him. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, it's David.
Amazing.
Over here. And again, it's a smaller local, family run. It's not some big conglomerate, so. And Dave and I, if I need to get something done, he's an old Orlando family, and so am I. We do things on a handshake, and I don't do that many people in this world anymore. But, Dave, it's just one of those things. So it is a great company and, run by great people.
What about other components for a build? Do you prefer sourcing all those parts yourself, Chris, or let's say a customer has a Simrad that they already purchased?
Well, yes, we do. I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. One, we like to control the supply chain. Okay. Customers always tell you, we're going to get it to you next week, and it's week after week, and you're waiting on it. It never shows up with all the components it's supposed to have. And we have some of our own special SKUs with those companies. For instance, we have a console that goes in a skiff that has flush mounted GPSs. With most of those companies, we need a harness that comes out immediately into a 90 so that it fits in that small space. Well, the standard is not that 90 fitting. So we have our own SKU at Ray Marine and at Simrad that when they package that, we get the right harness that's got the 90-degree turn in it, as opposed to one that comes straight out. That's kind of a for instance. And if you can't get that anywhere, you won't know what the part number is. And therefore we end up having to run around and try to find, a harness that's going to work for us, or special order something, and that's going to slow things down. So, and you really can't buy it any cheaper than we do. And quite frankly, things like GPSs, we put them in at what typical retail would be, but we install them for that price. So
right. Big difference.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go up to Bass Pro and get it. Well, you can get it. And that's what the price you pay for that is what I'm going to provide it and install it for. So, you can't beat it. And so, but we like to do it. So from a business standpoint, that way we're controlling this. We know when it's going to come, or if it's on back order somewhere, we know when that's going to be, and we can plan that into our production process. So customer supplied parts or things, and unless it's something really, really special, like you've got, the steering wheel off your dad's boat. If I can make it work and it means something to you, we'll do that. But it's those sort of things that we, that are okay to kind of provide. But the run of the mill stuff, we like to make sure we've got it, and we know that we've got all the parts and the components and to hook it up.
And the same applies for batteries and chargers.
For the most part,
certain ones for those.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If the owner of Die Hard wants to come build a boat, I'll take the batteries from him. But, unless there's a real reason, there's nothing you can get that I can't quite get better, faster, and have a relationship with a vendor,
Maybe we can help drive down some of those calls for you. What is the number one support question that your service department is getting that we could go ahead and answer here, if you know?
No, I'm going to tell you, as you were saying that, Dave, I was just thinking of really like all the off the wall questions that we get sometimes. No, I can't say there's a number one. It's just, they're all over the place. And mostly it's, most of the stuff we have here. So not only we manufacture, but if you buy a boat used, and you want us to factory install, we have our own service department that does, after the aftermarket installs or fluff and buffs, or if you hit a dock with it and put a big scratch on it or something, we can put Humpty Dumpty back together again fairly easy, not easily, but we do a pretty good job at it. You know what, Dave? That's all over the place. I don't have a good recommendation or thought on that.
Now, is your service department limited strictly to working on Hells Bay, or you work on, putting Humpty Dumpty back together again if it's a Redfisher or some other brand of skiff?
Nope, it's got to be a Hells Bay. We know how to do that. I don't know how they put those boats together, and I don't know how to make how to make a rat's nest of a wiring package and make it look like somebody else's. We only know how to make them look neat and clean.
Some of them just, it's a
so anyway, no, we,
and I question some of them that say that they're, an NMA certified. I go, yeah, but after he walked out, it totally changed.
Yeah.
After that.
And I say one of the biggest nightmares for us, quite frankly, is when a customer has gotten in there and tried to redo something themselves. And we always know when they have. One of my head techs come to me and go, so-and-so has been in there messing with their rigging. He says, I'm trying to figure out, they got some new wires we've never seen. Of course, they go up the auto parts store, and that's not marine grade, and you're like, oh, I'm trying to figure out where he ran wires that's not marine grade that are now corroding, after the fact. That would probably be some of the stuff is untangling some of those things that people just unintentionally just don't know. They think wire's wire, right? Well, it's not.
They don't know what 10 wire is. I get it.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Hells Bay buying process. So customer says, got to have one. What should they do? What's that process? What's the timelines? How does that work?
Oh, we can, well, right now, since we're out 18, 20 months, you call up here and we put in basically a production slot reservation is the way we look at it. We knock down, and you can still change it if you all of a sudden we come out with the Marathon and you had a Marquesa on order where you're like, hey, as we get ready to build it, hey, can I have the Marathon instead? Yes. But we take it and we do a base boat contract, and then when you're about ready, within about 6 weeks of going into production, we get with you and we get all of your wants and desires and your options, and that may change. And the big deal is for instance, it may not be much of a change, but if we write down you want the 1, 2, 3 model from Simrad today, well, it's going to be the 4, 5, 6 model in 18 months. So why we don't need or now you want something from Raymarine instead because they've got something better or something from Hummingbird.
Sure.
So we just wait till right 6 weeks before So you put your reservation in with, you come and talk and decide what kind of things you do want. And then you got time to think over your options. But that way you get on the build list, and, you call here, talk to one of my guys, Jake or Al right now, two sales guys, but they're here in the factory every day. So, and we do factory tours here. So if you want to come by and see how we do it and see, what makes Carbon Negra special and what makes our build process special, we love to show people. So, we work 5 days a week here. But Monday is what I call a light day. So we work, most of the departments work 4 10-hour shifts.
Oh, I love that.
So, but on Monday, the very first gel coating and laminators start on Monday, and they don't work on Friday. So the reason I say that is for factory tours, it looks like we're not getting much done on Monday. It's a one department shift. And then we let some of our guys come in if they want to work for overtime. We allow them to work on Mondays, and we have several people come in and work in their department. If they can move production forward in any way on that Monday and get some overtime for them, that's good for us. But then Tuesday through Friday is when everybody's here, and it's hopping and buzzing and things are going on. It's a good time to come by and visit. Just call our main, go online, get our office number, and talk to Jake or Al, and come by. If you're from far away and you can't come by, they'll walk you through the process over the phone, and they'll email you back and forth some documents, and until you feel comfortable, and then you put a small deposit down, and we hold your spot. And then when we get to you about 6 weeks out, we reconfirm, and we do what we call finalization, which is again picking, and then you really go through, and by then you've read online, about every single option you could possibly imagine until you've driven yourself crazy typically. Then you come to your final selections, and then we go to production. And then about 6 weeks after we start production, your boat will be done.
Do you collaborate with any financial institutions that work directly with you, or how does that process work for those that are looking to finance?
Most of our we do. We don't care where your financing comes from. You might have your own, relationships, which is fine. And we've got 2 or 3 lenders that really understand our product, that are really easy to work with. And we found for most customers, if they do it over the phone, and they make it super easy. And we just give you 2 or 3 names. You call them, talk to them. And if that's where you want to come up with financing, for your boat, you're off and running. But you can use your own or write a check.
Interesting. I remember hearing years ago that Piper Aircraft made as much money or more on their merchandise sales, and I suspect Harley Davidson is probably about the same. How's the Hells Bay store working out nowadays for you?
It works pretty good. It's amazing. I mean, we sell stuff to places I didn't even know they knew what a flats boat was. So, all over the world, sometimes up into Canada, way up into Canada, northern Canada, people are finding our stuff, and they like our merchandise. We sometimes, we do kind of liken ourselves to, 2 things about our merchandise. Like we kind of liken it to like Harley Davidson. There's a lot of people out there that wear Harley Davidson stuff that's never been on a motorcycle. But
right.
A lot of people out there we would like to wear, Hells Bay. It's cool. We got a cool little logo and all. So it's neat. So we sell a lot of that merchandise. And the other thing I kind of tell people is, we're like a crack dealer. We start with a T-shirt. We'll work you up to that boat. You can't deny
right.
yourself. So
that's right.
So yeah,
I love it. So what's next? Anything top secret that you're working on you'd like to share, or is your models pretty much locked down now? You feel comfortable?
Wendi would kill me if I let loose any state secrets, top secret black box stuff. We're working on some stuff. Nothing I can really kind of announce right now. So a lot of it's in the early stages. Always working on stuff. Always working on, I'll just give you, for instance, this isn't a black box thing. For instance, the guide, we're redoing the cap on the guide, the way all the hatches and all work on the guide. The guide has been one of our older pieces of tooling. It was designed for instance, with strap hinges. So we're redesigning all of that. So we've got slam latches and that they open kind of like all the rest of our boats do now. It was the most old school piece that we currently have. So, I mean, there's always something, and we don't target things for, okay, we got to get this done for the model year changeover. It's not like, we're not like Ford, where we have a whole brand new look coming out, for 2024 or whatever. So, right. It's continual improvement as hard and fast as we can. But doing it right. We don't like to make changes fast, because typically a lot of them won't work out. We've got to change something and make sure it's proven before we take a long time kind of doing on the water R&D on some of those things. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. So things that don't, and everybody else always thinks that it's just so easy to do. Oh, how do you get these things done this way? Well, we break and mess up a lot of stuff doing it in the process. So. And
it's a constant state of evolution. It kind of reminds me, I don't know if they still do it to this day, but Porsche did not really have model years. If you needed a part for a 911, parts department always needed the serial number. They always needed the VIN number.
Yep.
So they could see the production.
Same here at Hells Bay. And we've got a file on every single boat we've ever produced by the hull number. So we can look it up. I can tell you on any boat that was ever built here, I can tell you when your boat was laminated, what the temperature and humidity was in the lamination shop that day, all the way back to 1998.
That's going back quite a ways.
And we got a lot of files.
Yeah. And they're probably not digitized. A lot of them are probably still paper.
Yeah, they are all paper files. But at the same time, we scan them and we do have a database. So, but even though they're in a database, myself, the parts department, somebody's always leaning over those old boat files, pulling through and looking at something. And paper's just, maybe we're old school, but it's there. And I can be at a boat show and I can look up that information on my iPhone. We do have this technology, and we do here at Hells Bay have that technology. But if you call me up today and ask me, I'm going to walk right over here down the hallway here. I'm going to rip open one of those drawers and pull an actual manila jacket out of there with the information to look at. So anyway, yeah, amazing. Most of them are scanned and then put into a database, and we've got a database on all of our boats digitally as well. But
if someone's looking to purchase one, or even a used one, how's the best way to reach you guys?
Well, a couple ways. One, really the best way is just call us during office hours, which is pretty much 8 to 5 o'clock Monday through Friday. That's a great way. And then on our website, we've got a contact us, and it goes in, and the sales guy, depending on what you check, the little thing on the box that you check, you want to have service call you because you got a service question. My customer service manager will call you, versus a sales guy or whatever you need. So you go to the website, go through contact us, and then it gets routed to the right person. Or you can just email sales@hellsbayboatworks.com, and either Al or that email goes both to Jake and Al. So and both of them will get it, and you'll hopefully get a call or an email back. The only danger in that is both of them might think that the other person answered the email. Or you'll get both of them calling you. But their offices are next door to each other. I'm sure they're like, "Hey, did you call Dave?" "Yeah, I got Dave already." So that's how that works.
Well, buddy, I appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Oh, anytime.
Really had a great time, and I really had.
You've asked a lot about the boats and the boat business and boat building manufacturing, and I hope soon we get to circle back and really. I mean, my passion is boat building and conservation of old Florida and the in our old natural way of life here in Florida, fishing and hunting and that sort of thing. So, hope in the future we can, maybe circle back and we can talk more about the conservation end of things that we're very passionate about here at Hells Bay. And that's, just part of what we do.
It is very much so. And I wanted to thank you for your efforts on that front, because I know there's only so many hours in a day, and it takes a lot of time and effort to be able to throw time and resources at that. So looking forward to that one very much so. And we'll get that
anytime.
We'll get that one done here very soon. Very soon.
Well, brother, if you don't have good fishing and you don't have clean water, if you don't have clean water and you don't have good fishing, you don't need a
You don't
fishing
need a
boat
skiff.
that I'm going to build you. So,
That's right.
very, very important for us here. So, but thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it greatly. And that's the one thing I always like to emphasize. I don't think there's a lot of people that really realize just how big recreational fishing is in dollar cents in our state. It's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. And it's not just recreational fishing, flats fishing. It's just the guys who want to dip their toes in the water and what that means to our economy and that way of life. I want to be able to swim in our lakes and that sort of thing. I want my grandkids to do the same thing. So
I agree. That's why we started the tagline here on Flats Nation. No fish, no Florida. It's pretty.
That's exactly right.
It's really so tied in together so closely.
Well, I always like to tell people that Florida's water is her soul. And I mean, without Florida's water, what are we, Arizona? I mean,
exactly.
We're a big sandbar without it. We're just big,
huge,
so
huge sandbar. That's right.
Huge sandbar. That's about all we are without our beautiful water. And really, Florida is about water. So,
well, thank you, brother. I do appreciate it.
All right, Dave. Good talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. We'll talk soon.
And thanks again to our excellent guest, Chris Peterson of Hells Bay Boatworks, for helping to bring us up to date on their superb product lineup. As mentioned, Brother Chris is also heavily involved with the conservation and water quality efforts here in the great state of Florida. We are already working on the next show with him, where we will pull a deep dive into those efforts from his insider's point of view. And speaking of Christmas or other gift needs, our store's casual and the newer Flats Nation technical wear received some very positive reviews, is now ready to ship. You can review them in the various blend-in colors on our site simply by clicking on the link at the top title bar for our store, and to also see what else we have in the works. So this is your host, Dave Legier. The team and I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and many blessings to you and your family for the new year.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our show today and found it both educational and entertaining at the same time. If you or your company would like to join the team on Flats Nation for a podcast or other coverage, feel free to drop us a quick note at info@flatsnation.com. And now, here's the rest of the song to run the skiff back home with. Tight lines and God bless.